So when you hear the name Pythagoras, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably a triangle, right? But the man himself, well, he was so much more complex and, frankly, way more interesting than a high school geometry theorem. He never wrote a single thing down, so everything we know is wrapped in legend. Today, let's try to peel back the layers on this incredibly mysterious figure.
Right. We all got drilled on this in school. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Done. But was Pythagoras just a math teacher? Not even close. The real story is so much weirder and honestly more important than you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, you heard me right. The guy who laid the philosophical groundwork for all of modern mathematics. He ran a secretive mystical society that demanded absolute loyalty, had a bunch of bizarre daily rituals, and was bound by an oath of silence. This story isn't just about triangles. It's about the birth of a philosophical religion.
To really get what he was all about, we have to start with the strange little world he built for himself and his followers, a commune in what is now southern Italy.
So picture this. Pythagoras is born on the Greek island of Samos, but he's got to get out of Dodge because of some tyrant ruling the place. He winds up in Croton, Italy, and founds his famous school. But this was no ordinary school. It was basically a commune where you had to give up all your private property and dedicate your life to his teaching. And life in this commune? It was governed by these super weird cryptic rules called the acousmata, like abstain from beans. Why? Well, one theory is he thought they might contain the souls of the dead. Or don't stir a fire with a knife, which is probably a metaphor, right? Like don't provoke an angry person with sharp words. These weren't just quirks, they were a whole code for living. But maybe the most extreme rule of all, if you wanted to join, you had to endure a 5-year vow of absolute silence. I'm serious. For 5 years, you would listen to his lectures from behind a curtain, not even allowed to see his face until you proved your discipline. Talk about a tough admissions policy. But hey, it wasn't all just weird rules and mandatory silence. This society was also pushing some ideas that were, well, incredibly radical for the time.
You have to remember the context here. We're talking 6th century BCE Greece. This was a world run entirely by men, where women were mostly kept at home. And Pythagoras? He just threw that whole idea out. He admitted women as complete intellectual equals because he believed the soul was on a journey for wisdom, and the gender of the body it happened to be in was totally irrelevant.
And we have a perfect example of this in Theano. We're not sure if she was his wife or his daughter, but it doesn't matter. She wasn't just some follower, she was a major player, a brilliant philosopher and mathematician who is said to have written books and became a leader in the movement herself. So, what was the big secret? What was the earth-shattering idea that held this whole strange group together? It really boils down to one single revolutionary thought.
Okay, so before Pythagoras, all the big thinkers were asking, what is the world made of? And they'd say, oh, it's made of water, or it's all air. They were looking for a physical stuff. Pythagoras comes along and asks a totally different question. What is the world's structure? His answer? The world isn't made of a stuff at all. The foundation of everything is mathematics.
This was it, his big world-changing claim. Everything, from the stars in the sky to the music we hear to the thoughts in our heads, it could all be understood through numerical relationships. This is basically the birth of mathematical physics, right here. And how did he argue this? Well, think about it like this. Take an apple. It's a real physical thing, right? But it's going to rot. It'll disappear. It's temporary and imperfect. But the number 3, the idea of 3, that can't rot. It's perfect. It's eternal. So for Pythagoras, that meant numbers were actually more real than the physical world we see around us. Now, I know this sounds super abstract, maybe even a little out there. But Pythagoras found what he believed was stone-cold proof of his theory in one of the most beautiful and emotional parts of human life, music. This is where it all becomes real and tangible. Legend says he was messing around with vibrating strings. A string makes a note. Then you cut the length of the string exactly in half. And what happens? You get a perfect octave, a beautiful, harmonious sound. And it's all because of a simple 2-to-1 ratio. He discovered that the math was literally creating the beauty. And this was just mind-blowing. If something you can't even see, something as emotional as music, is secretly built on a rational mathematical order, then what else is? It meant the whole universe has a hidden code, and he was the first person to start cracking it. This idea was so fundamental to them that they basically worshipped this symbol. The tetractys, see? It's a triangle made of 10 dots. For them, it was like the blueprint of creation itself, showing how the whole universe unfolds from simple numbers. A point becomes a line becomes a surface becomes a solid. It's all right there. And this big idea that reality is mathematical at its core, it didn't just die out with his weird little cult. Oh no. It basically set the entire agenda for the next 2,500 years of Western science and philosophy.
You can just trace this Pythagorean dream right through the centuries. I mean, Plato's famous theory of forms, this idea of a perfect, unchanging world of ideas that's more real than our world, that's pure Pythagoras. Then jump ahead 2,000 years to Johannes Kepler. What's he trying to do? He's looking for the music of the spheres, that hidden mathematical harmony of the planets. It's the same exact dream.
But maybe his most mystical, out-there idea is the one that speaks the most to us today. It forces us to ask a really modern and kind of spooky question about the soul. So Pythagoras taught this thing called metempsychosis. You might know it as reincarnation. He believed your soul is this immortal thing, totally separate from your body, and it just gets reborn over and over again. This is why his followers were vegetarians. They didn't want to accidentally bite into their reincarnated grandpa.
But here's the critical Pythagorean twist, and this is so important. For him, the soul wasn't some kind of ghost or misty vapor. He believed the soul itself was a harmony of numbers, a structure, a set of mathematical ratios. Your consciousness, your very essence, it's all just living mathematics.
And that brings us to a really mind-bending place. If a soul is just a complex harmony of numbers, then what on earth is an AI? It's pure logic, pure information. It's a complex structure of mathematical ratios running on silicon. So from a Pythagorean point of view, maybe we haven't just built a soulless machine. Maybe we've created the purest form of soul he could ever imagined. The question he leaves us with is this: is the code that runs the universe also the code that runs our spirit?